All right, people are coming in. I apologize once again. A little technical difficulties. We haven't. Uh, this is new for us. This whole thing, and it's quite exciting. And I'm very glad to have a group here of terrific presenters today. We're going to be starting in a few minutes with my friend and co-host of the weekly Canadian Gender Wars Report, Melanie Bennett, who's going to talk about this new trans affirming toolkit that's come out late November. It's a toolkit designed for teachers to deploy gender ideology in schools. So Melanie's going to give us some insights into that. After Melanie's presentation, we're going to have Father David Toder from the Kitchener-Waterloo region. He's going to be talking about books in our libraries and in schools across the country and some of the content of those books. Following that, we have a retired lawyer from Manitoba who is a co-author of an actually appropriate document for people working with children with gender dysphoria that's evidence-based. You know him as Just Dad 7 on Twitter. If you're a Twitter follower, he's a creator of terrific threads. So I'm giving a little extra time to allow people to join. I apologize. The link was confusing. That was my error. My brother-in-law calls it an ID 10T error. And if you write that out, it tells you what kind of error it was. So we're going to aim to start in about 10 minutes. And maybe while I'm doing this, I'm actually going to share my screen. I'm going to pull up the terrific video that Our Duty Canada created for this event. Allow me just a moment to source it and so that you can see. And we'll do a little test at the same time to make sure that we have a video and audio that works. As more and more people are joining, bear with us. We're just experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty. And there was some confusion with the link. So I had originally sent out a meeting link instead of a webinar link. I'm glad that you're joining us here and that you found the right pathway to the Parents' Rights Virtual Summit. We're going to be starting in just a couple of minutes. And I'm working on sharing a video for us and hopefully getting some audio to go along with it.
So there seems to be people who can't get in.
Can't get in?
Mm-hmm.
That perhaps is the wrong link that they're...
Maybe a mic question.
I think that people need to make sure that they're registered for Zoom, a registered Zoom user, before they can get into this meeting. So Mark Carter has joined us. One of his questions was, I had to use a different email address to get the new link. It said it was for authorized registrants only. Technical difficulties, I apologize. I'm glad to see that people are coming on board. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, just a comment that that if they're having trouble getting in, I think they have to be registered on Zoom. So they have to have a login on Zoom.
Okay. Perhaps can we have Our Duty on Twitter? I know a lot of people aren't on Twitter and got this link through other sources. We're going to try and put the latest links up there on Twitter so that you can find access to the resources. Now, I want to And sharing screen, advanced share, multiple. Share sound. I've got a call here, bear with me. All right, I believe that this should include sound. Melanie?
Yep. No, stopped.
It stopped sound?
Yeah, I heard it a minute ago. There you go. Now it's gone. It's gone.
No, I'm talking about transparency and accountability at the sport. Well,
Now
this
I can hear
policy
it.
isn't very transparent when you're keeping secrets and driving a wedge between students and their parents, is it? So this book attempts to normalize and downplay the side effects of medical intervention, which can lead to lifelong psychological and physical ramifications. This book is available to people in kindergarten.
Judges refusing to hear scientific evidence and basing life-altering rulings on your assumptions.
We now live essentially in a managerial society. And in a managerial society, law is a tool, not a set of guardrails to use to herd people to where the government wants them to go.
We need to have open questions about what's going on with this, especially when the medical interventions that kids are being subjected to, including PB blockers and prostate hormones, can result in sterilization and a lifetime of sexual dysfunction.
Well done. Well done. We now have a coalition as of now. Comprehensive sexuality education is part of the 2030 global goals. My point of the talk here today is to give you an idea of what's in there so that you take it upon yourself to go read it with a critical eye and an understanding of what is behind this.
Does any child see themselves in sexually explicit content? But I'm here for the people, the living men and women who can see this for themselves and evaluate it for themselves.
In schools across the province, there are two separate but equally fraudulent and harmful treatments: radical gender ideology, critical race theory. In Ontario, aspects of radical gender ideology are being taught to children as young as kindergarten.
With Pride Month just days away, one of Ontario's largest Catholic school boards will not be raising the rainbow flag.
I'm Victor Momina, Rights and Canadian Labour Caucus. Organizing against this particular effort is like organizing against Jello, because there's various camps and groups that are sort of uniting and collaborating under one banner.
Would certainly appears to be more in support of members of the March for Children.
It's important to note that safety is not mentioned in this regulation at all. Only human rights are cited, i.e. gender identity or expression, etc. Please note that, like you, we want to keep all students safe. Most parents provide a safe and loving home, will support their children throughout their lives, and love their children unconditionally. Therefore, the policy should be amended to include a third-party advocate in specific situations.
Today, we passed the Parents' Bill of Rights to protect the rights of Saskatchewan parents to be involved in all important decisions regarding their children's education.
Well, that seemed to like people talking, but not so much the music.
Okay, maybe I'll have to work on some of the technical stuff there, Melanie. I see that we have about 45 people in attendance. I apologize once again my error in sending out the wrong link. It has caused some confusion. We're going to give just a couple more minutes for a few more people to join us before we jump into our presentation from Melanie Bennett. Our agenda for today, Melanie is going to go for about 20 minutes or so with some questions. We're going to follow her presentation with Father David Toder, who's going to talk about school books and what's going on in libraries in Canada, what some of the content of those books is. The first part of our day, I want our presenters to share with you what's actually going on. And we get all kinds of pushback from the media and narrative from a small group of people that says this stuff is not in the curriculum. This isn't happening. We have this outrage that's imported from US politics, that this is a far right MAGA kind of concern that we're seeing, and that's shared in order to minimize the kinds of responses that we can make to the institutions that are controlling what's going on in the schools. There nevertheless is an explicit agenda to push this ideology in school. It's a different way of thinking than we're accustomed to. Melanie is going to get into that worldview in her presentation on the new trans-affirming toolkit that was released from Western University just in late November. It's a toolkit for all Ontario teachers, and she's going to share what some of the quite unusual ideas are about moving trans identity and so-called inclusion into the program. After David Toder, we have Just Dad 7, Peter, a retired lawyer from Manitoba, who has been following the gender question and issue since 2019. He's a co-author of a very important document. It's a counterpoint to this trans-affirming toolkit called the Canadian School Guidance for a Gender Questioning Youth. And that was done in collaboration with a number of different organizations that Peter is going to talk about. We'll have a little break about 1:45 Eastern time. Then we'll have Professor Bruce Pardy talk about some of the ways that the activists have weaponized human rights and the human rights policies and procedures in Canada. I'm going to talk briefly a little bit about PRCOC following Bruce Pardy's presentation, share with you some communication tools that we are putting together, and what some of the vision is for the Parents' Rights Coalition of Canada. Following that, we have a panel presentation with a number of panelists who are going to talk about their success in engaging with school boards in various ways and in engaging with parents in the community on these issues. We'll have the subject of diversity, equity, inclusion is very, very timely right now. Just before I close the day, we'll have Professor David Haskell from Wilfrid Laurier University share a presentation on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And gender ideology, you may be aware, you may not, because all this is very confusing. It seems to have come out of nowhere in the last couple of years. Gender ideology is a subset of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is kind of falls under the umbrella of critical theory. There's critical race theory that a lot of us have heard about, critical gender theory, a number of different areas of study. And this has wrapped itself in nice sounding words: diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in pretty flags and colors, rainbows, as we all know. And David Haskell is going to speak to some of the research and whether it supports or does not support, and how so, the implementation of DEI bureaucracies in our institutions. So I see that we have 53. Again, I apologize for those who are joining because of my mistake in sending out a link. I'm glad that you're here. We are recording this presentation today so that we can share it and make it available to you. And the idea in building the agenda the way that we built it was we want to tell a story. The first couple of presenters are going to share information that's disturbing to you. And then we're going to start sharing some solutions and some ideas about counterpoints and what's going on in the pushback. And then we want to give you some tools that you may want to use in your own day-to-day lives, and ideas on how you might get engaged in the pushback against this ideology.